This teaching is for class 9 economic applications. So dear student, this is the first chapter for the second term syllabus, and the chapter name is Public and Private Sector in India Economy, and this is chapter 7. This chapter I'm going to make a two part. One part is public sector and the other part is private sector in Indian economy. So in the first part of the video, I will be explaining on the public sector enterprise in Indian economy. So now as we have to begin with the explanations on the public sector or the private sector. Before we go in detail of this sector in separately, let me first explain to you all the Indian economy system. So when we have to talk about, or when we have to talk or explain about this sector, public and private sector, these sectors are divided according to the ownership of enterprises. So as it is divided, or as it is sector according to the ownership of enterprises, we have to know that Indian economy system is a mixed economy. So this mixed economy, which says the mixture of two or more type of economy, this Indian economy system is the mixture, which means mixture of public and private sector. Because of this mixture, the Indian economy is divided according to the productivity activities, according to the production activities, which is called as a Indian economy divides productive enterprise into public enterprise and private enterprise. So at the time of independence, the activities of public sectors were confined to very limited enterprises such as irrigations, power, railways, ports, and communications. But after independence, we know that the public sector is not only confined to the above mentioned enterprises, it has enlarged to other many activities that brings the development to the Indian economy. So as we have said, that Indian economy is a mixed economy of public and private sector. So now, in the first part, as I said, I will be explaining to you only on the public sector enterprises, and in the second part, of the video, will be the private sector enterprises. Now, public sector enterprise is what? Public sector enterprise, when we say public, it is not speaking to the general public, but the enterprises or sector which is owned by the government. That is what the public sector enterprise is. Now in India, the public sector enterprise are called by varieties of names. These are not only known by the public sector enterprise, but it also can be known by different various names. As such, public sector undertaking, nationalized industries, and sector enterprise. Now, in this, what the government does, the government is concerned for public enterprise in the annual report regarding the working of the public enterprise. So here, the government take the initiative to get all the reports of the working of public enterprises. And it more says that public sector in India include all those economic organizations. So, what is this economic organizations? Any organization or enterprises that is mainly for the benefit for the public, benefit for the citizens, benefit for the government. That type of organizations is said to be economic organizations. These economic organizations doesn't it is not comparable, or uh, it is not comparable with any other organizations, because these organizations, when we say economic organizations, that organizations is speaking about the any organizations or enterprise that is that their goal is for earning and benefiting. So now, as I said, that public sector in India includes all those economic organizations which are engaged in the productions and distributions of goods or services, which are looked after entirely by the state or the central government. Now, the public sector enterprise. The public sector enterprise could be understood in the following way. In what the following way can be said that the public sector enterprise are categorized under the following heads. That is what the first one is: improper price policy. So most of the public sector enterprise do not follow a rational price policy, which means they are not following the price policy as that of the private sector enterprises, because this is a government policy. No, sorry, this is a government sector. So here, in most of the enterprises, price of their product or service are kept in a low level, so that every public or every general could have the purchasing power on the goods that are produced by the public sector. The price charged for supplying such product or service do not cover the average cost of productions, which result in the loss or sale or on sale. Which means what? Most of the prices charged on the productions does not even cover on the average cost of productions. Because of these reasons, the public sector enterprises sometimes come on loss on sale. The second characteristic which we can say of public sector enterprise is what? Excessive manpower. When we say excessive manpower, the use of manpower, the use of labor are beyond the necessary in the enterprise, which means what? The employees, the employees remain far above their actual needed of labor to that is employed in one of the organizations in any public sector enterprises is beyond the requirement. Hence, a huge sum of money is required for the payment on the wages and salaries. Because of the reasons, the government has to spend a lot of money on payment of their wages or their salary, which are sometimes become unnecessary expenditure. Then the third one is underutilizations of capacity. As the price of the product and services in most cases do not cover the rising average cost of productions. Therefore, unit becomes sick after some time. Which means what? Since the resources are not properly utilized according to the capacity of the organizations or enterprises, they cannot even raise the money required or the money they have spent for the productions. Because of this reason, the enterprise, which is said to be a unit or manufacturing unit, sometimes fall into sick after some time of working. And the fourth one is that absence of proper work culture. As compared to the private sector, public sector doesn't have proper work culture, which means there is no any disciplined way of working habit among the employees, among the employee. That's why it says here, in public sector enterprise, indiscipline and lack of responsibility among the workers, which as a result, what happened is that frequent labor unrest and bad relationship between the management and the worker. Because of that, the enterprise become paralyzed at the end. And the fifth point is that improper management. There is no any proper management as compared to the private enterprises. So in this, and improper management is what? Efficient management along with proper delegations or authority from the top level of management to the lower level are supposed to be the preconditions for smooth functioning of an enterprise. Which means what? From the higher level to the lower level, there has to be a proper management or proper authority to look after or for the functioning of the enterprises. Then the last one, inappropriate technique of productions. Even though this is a government or the state government or the central government enterprises, here in this public sector enterprises, there is no any proper technique of production is used. That means what? Inappropriate technique of productions are also an important explanations for inefficient operations in many public sector enterprises in India. So because of this, what happened is that a public sector enterprise could not develop, and such blast furnace which could function well even with the quality of coal, which means due to the inappropriate techniques being used in the productions, there is no any development in the side of public sector enterprises. Now next point, that is another subheading, that is consequence of poor performance of public sector enterprise in India. That means what? What is the reason? Consequence. What is the reason behind the poor performance? That means the bad performance for the public sector enterprise in India. There are some points that is being mentioned for this poor performance. The reason number one is that inefficient industrial structure, which means that the poor performance of many popular sector or public sector enterprise have led to a growing number of sick units due to poor performance of the industries, public sector enterprise that has grown bigger and bigger to fall down many public sector enterprises. Again, poor performance of this unit, or particularly in the core sector, means particularly in the important sectors, implies industrial recession, means the industrial development has started to fall slowly by slowly. The next reason for the poor performance is growing burden on government exchequer. Huge subsidies or state support was given to most of the economically unviable public sector unit just to keep them alive. There are many public sector, what it explains is that there are many public sector which are not at all giving the productivity or giving any product which will lead to the development of the Indian economy, but many public sector work in opposite to this. That is why what happened is that the public sector automatically fall sick, and just to keep alive some of the sector, even which doesn't give any good productions, the government still has to pay, the government still have to run that sector to keep them alive instead of dying off. So this led to a growing burden on the government exchequer. Because of no returns come from the public sector, the government instead of getting profit or benefit from that sector, what the government has to do is that they have to spend from their own uh, for keeping alive some of the unit or some of the enterprises or organizations to keep them alive. Because of this, the government sometimes fall in deficit because they have to just uh, keep on supporting those units to keep them alive. And the third reason for the poor performance is what? Poor competitive strength. We know that in the public sector enterprises, what happened is that there is no any competitive mind because it because it we know it is a public, which means a government enterprises. Because of that, in most of the public sector enterprise, the quality output was very poor, and hence this unit or enterprise could not gain sufficient competitive strength both in the domestic and in the international market, because there is no competitive in the productions, in the quality, in the quality check, or in the productions quantity. The the domestic market as well as international market, they cannot gain sufficient competitive strength because of this poor competitive strength. And this is the three reasons for the poor performance of the public sector. So now let me just conclude for the first part of this explanations on public sector enterprise. Now we can say at the we can conclude by saying that the role of public sector in promoting economic development cannot be neglected. However, how bad it is, how poor in performance in a nation's economy, the uh, the public sector, even if that is giving a poor performance, even then it cannot be neglected at any cost. And we know that the this mixed kind of economy, or the public sector economy, which was really advocated or founded or given idea by our late Prime Minister Mrs. Indira Gandhi, to gain control of the commanding height of the economy and to provide commercial surplus with which to finance further economic development, which means to gain control and to bring a high development in the economy and to promote commercial profit with which the finance further economic development. In whatsoever, even we know that there is a poor performance or there is a bad performance, even in the olden days, or even after independence, even at the present time, the public sector doesn't give a much development to the economic development. Even then, this this public sector has to be kept alive, because this, in some way or some other way, this provides some uh, commercial benefit to the country, and that develop in some way or the other to the economic development. And for the next explanation of the private sector enterprises, uh, dear student, you will find in the next part of the video. Thank you.